perspective of that in which we acknowledge He understands how we are fashioned. God knows that we are but dust. And still, Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. We always begin our service with psalms. Psalms are the oldest prayers that we have, our oldest liturgy going back to the time of the Bible itself. And that way we're going to link the life of David Maitin to 3,000 years of Jewish tradition, the people of Israel, and the eternity of God.
Shir Lamalot. Shomer Yisrael, Adonai Shomerech, Adonai Tzilecha, Hal Yad Yeminecha, Yomam Hashemesh Lo Yakecha V'Yareach B'Layla, Adonai Yishmarcha Mikol Ra, Yishmor Et Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmor Tzidcha, U'Bolecha Me'ata V'Yad Olam. Psalm 121, the song first says, I lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from evil and will guard your soul. Adonai guards your going and coming, now and forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino desha yarbitzeni, almei minuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshoveh, ancheni b'mad le'tzedek l'man shemo, gam ki elech begeit samavet, lo yirara, ki atai madi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hima yinachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi rivaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai, v'orech yamid. Those were the Hebrew words of Psalm 23, also known as the Shepherd's Psalm, a psalm and words that we have turned for generations to seek comfort in difficult moments such as this one. Please join me in the English translation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
This past Shabbat, in our annual cycle of Torah reading, we began our reading from the final book of the Torah, the fifth book, Devarim. But it's really from the very first book of Torah, from the biblical book of beginnings, Bereshit, that we learn not only of the beginning of life, but also of life's end. And there we find that at the time of the passing of the matriarchs and the patriarchs of our people, it is members of the family who come forward to speak words of memory, words of eulogy. So in keeping with that truly ancient tradition. We're going to hear from the members of Dave's family today, and Norma is going to begin.
Thank you all for coming. I'm a believer. Some people might refer to it as fate. In Hebrew, it's Goral. In Yiddish, Bashert. Well, September 7th, 1997, one of those events occurred. I was invited to a bereavement group that was beginning at the Jewish family service. I was hesitant to go because I had had an unpleasant experience at one, but the facilitator convinced me to try. Okay, as a fairly recent widow at that time, I was searching for sharing with others who were in the same position, perhaps gain some insight into what might be helpful to lessen the grief. The man across from me was the first to relate some personal information. He told us his name, it was David Maitin. His type of career, feelings, losses, he spoke about them all. He said he felt very alone, he had a wonderful family, but he was kind to all the other people who were very angry about losing their mates. His comments were of particular interest to me because he described his dual career. He was a department head in science at Beck Junior High for 26 years. He had a degree in optometry as well. I was truly startled because my late husband had the identical dual careers. In fact, they both attended Temple University and the Pennsylvania College of Optometry 2 years apart. What were the chances of ever meeting someone like that? When it was my turn to speak, I was almost speechless. That doesn't happen often to me. You know, I'm a person who can turn a word into a paragraph, I'm sure you all know. When the meeting adjourned, this man stopped to speak with me and told me that he had never met my late husband, but had his picture in the yearbook, and that they were 2 years apart. While chatting with him, I felt a spark. He was kind. He was good looking. He even had pennies in his penny loafers. And I felt understood. While speaking to him, we agreed that each of us felt like a robin with a broken wing. We agreed that we would return to the next meeting and said so long. Later in the week, I received a letter from him at my office at Temple Beth Shalom, where I was the school director. In it, he had written what sounded like an invitation to meet for lunch, dinner. I guess that he felt the spark as well. We started to see each other a few times a week and grew close very quickly. I had a need to tell him about my health history because his late wife had been seriously ill, and he might not want to continue with me knowing that I had already had 2 bouts with cancer. His response, as he looked into my eyes, was, at our age, anything can happen in a blink of the eye. I am here for as long as our forever shall be. Those words said it all. And so we have been together for 24 years, and that was our forever. We love to travel. Our trips were to Europe, Israel, United States. We spent winters in Florida, especially after I retired. Even though they offered $1,000 more, I said, no way, Jose. I'd given my life to my career, and I was 64, and I thought, I need to live my life now. After I retired from TBS, Dave was still working and would commute for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. He always left me a caveat. Remember, no hanky-panky. We were on the 2nd floor. I assured him that there was no chance anybody would come since they did drive at night and they surely couldn't walk the steps. When we moved to the 1st floor, he was really serious by saying, now I'm really worried they can just wheel their chairs in. His feigned jealousy about how beautiful and desire I was made me feel like a queen. He will forever live in my heart and in my memory. The joy of his companionship will never leave me.
Now, we'll hear from Lori and I.
We'll pick up the pace because I know everybody wants to speak. Grandpa, Padre, Davy, Gigi Dave, Uncle Davy, Cousin Davy. My dad wore many hats, and he could not have been happier to do so. For many, he was an inspiration, a role model with a respected work ethic and limitless love for and from all his family. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, cousins, his brothers, Irv and Sam, who he adored and admired, and of course, Mom and Norma. This was his world, filled with love, and in a world tainted with fraud, lying, evil, corruption. My father was a good, decent, loving, honest, compassionate man with great integrity. For his family, Dad was always there when we needed him, and we needed him. He always had our back, supportive and encouraging. Looking at notes that he wrote me over the years, Dad consistently commented on how proud he was of me and how grateful he was to be my father. Everything we are today, we owe to Mom and Dad. I can only pray that I can instill in my sons the many great qualities of my father. He would be so happy to know that the very last act of his on this earth was to bring all his children together. It's hard to say goodbye. We have many great memories, Florida trips in the Ford station wagon, camping with the Schwartzes, trips to Ithaca to see the Cogans. I thank him for teaching me everything he did, for sacrificing so that his children may thrive in his unquestionable love and support. And I am so grateful to have been his son.
I'm Lori, his oldest, and I'm speaking on behalf of my sister, as well, Brenda. thrilled to have everyone come. Obviously not for this funeral, but to see all of you. Thank you. How to say goodbye to your dad. Unfortunately, we're getting to the age where we have to deal with this. Upon learning that my father had been diagnosed just last week with a very aggressive cancer, I knew that I was going to lose him soon. Never thinking it would be as quick as it was, I still began to fret about how was I going to say goodbye to my dad. This panicky thought traveled through my mind as I helped care for him day and night. This past week, my dad was connection to home. He was my home. When my husband Steve and I got married 40 years ago, the trend within my parents' group of friends was for the father of the bride to not just make a speech, but to entertain somehow. The last wedding they had attended before ours, the dad had sung to his daughter in front of everyone. Since my dad was not planning to bring the house down that way, he decided on a different route. He wrote, hand wrote of course, and mailed, snail mail of course, his own serenade, a letter filled with thank yous of all the things he cherished about us, he and I. And it's still tucked in my safety deposit box at home, and I can't wait to go and read it again. So how appropriate that I do the same now, a list of thank yous to my dad. Thank you, Dad, for being such a wonderful, brilliant, heartwarming, funny, kind, and generous dad to your 3 children. A fabulous husband to our mother and later to Norma, and an exceptional grandfather and great-grandfather. Thank you to you and Mom for providing such a stable home for I and Brenda and I, and for being such a great role model as a true family man. Thank you for buying station wagons when we were growing up, and putting the seat down, and creating a fun apartment in the back of the car with pillows, blankets, and lots of food, and then hitting the road to take us on our many vacations that I have described, sort of like Chevy Chase. The Griswold family, that was us in the movie Vacation. Thank you for buying 10 boxes of Christmas lights one year for Hanukkah, and finagling all the lights and ending up with just blue and white ones so that we could be part of the crowd in the neighborhood. Thank you for helping me with my homework. I waited for you to come home sometimes if I had a tough time. And you would even take off your coat and you would sit on the edge of my bed and just babble on and on and on and say, what the hell did you just say? But I needed your help. Thank you for rescuing me all those times I got in trouble. I drove in snowstorms and back roads places, and you dropped everything, day or night, to come find me. Remember, there's no cell phones. It wasn't as easy. For coming up to Princeton in the middle of the night to put drops in my eyes when I scratched my cornea. Thank you for not coming to the local bar to find me when there was a torrential rainstorm, and not yelling at me when I finally came in at 2 in the morning, though you were worried and pacing. And again, no cell phones. Thank you for loving your mom, our Bubby, our only grandparent that we ever knew, and calling her every night and taking us to visit her every week. And of course, thank you for loving and adoring our mother so much, and always telling us how she lit up the room when she walked in, and surprising her with something special that she may have wanted but would never have asked for, like the dresses she found, or we found, for Ian's bar mitzvah that she admired at her favorite dress shop. She could have gotten one dress for half off the price, or she could have picked the 2 dresses that she loved, one at full price and one for just a penny more. But of course, Mom chose the least expensive way and just took the one dress. But when I secretly told you about it, You called the dress shop and then surprised her with the extra dress that night while I watched in awe. And I didn't realize it then, but I found out what the true meaning of a mensch was. Thank you for telling Steve and I to get a 2-bedroom apartment when we were dating so we could save money. That was a big deal in 40 years ago, to tell your daughter to live with her boyfriend. I don't think we ever did tell you that we already were living together. That was also a big deal 40 years ago for a girl to tell her dad that we were living together. Thank you for putting together a great wedding for Steve and I within 3 months so that we could get married during the summer since I was a teacher. And you never asked if it was a shotgun wedding. Thank you for learning so not to give your grandchildren and great-grandchildren wet kisses that we had to endure. And for teaching them Yiddish words like oi baba and shmohawk. Thank you for battling and hanging in there after the loss of Mom. And then bringing us Norma when you met her in your support group. She's the one, without a doubt, who with all her tenacity, humor, drive, and compassion kept you going and helped you make it to 90+ years. And we are so proud of you. Thank you for being the sole survivor, a true patriarch, right, of your generation of 20 siblings, including Mom's sibling. 20 of your generation, including Mom's siblings and yours and their spouses. Our cousins love and honor their Uncle Dave, and will always treasure our Cooperman and Maitin memories of incredibly loud and silly and gluttonous family gatherings, parties, holidays, and Sunday pool parties. We all yearn for those years. And finally, like I said, thank you for bringing your children and grandchildren and Norman together one last time this past Saturday with you. Your legacy all entwined around you for hours. Everyone came from near and far and circled you with so much love and honor and respect as we always will do. You were our rock, our pillar. You were always there for Mom, for us, and for Norma, a true gentleman and a gentle man. I did tell you all the time how much I love you, and I'll say it again. I love you, I love you, I love you. I will always. But Mom taught us never to say goodbye. So I'm not going to say goodbye after all. Mom said to say so long. For now. Thank you.
So I'd like to now call up together 7 grandsons: Brian, Scott, Adam, Max, Asher, Joshua, and Avery.
I want to quickly acknowledge that all of Grandpa's grandsons are here except for our youngest brother Adam, who's watching on the live stream from California. He was here this past weekend on Saturday. He flew in on the drop of a hat when I called him and let him know what was about to go down. He dropped his whole life. He caught the red eye, and he was here. And then he had to go back, and I don't even know if I hope we got some sleep, Adam. I know you're watching. But we love you, and you are up here with us. I just wanted you all to know that. So Grandpa, this man right here, and I actually listed all the names as well, but I ain't read them all, so I'm going to call him Grandpa. Or Gigi Dave, which is how he's been known in our house for the last 6 years is he's been an amazing great-grandfather to my two kids, Joanna and Isaac, and that's Gigi Norma in our house as well. So, Grandpa or Gigi Dave. Anyway, this man, Gigi Dave, was a fighter, true fighter, and I'm not just talking about the way he went down and fought a couple days ago, or the way he fought his way through a bad fall a few years ago, or even the way he fought through the grief of losing my grandmother. I'm talking about a literal fighter who just 2 summers ago had the police called on him because a mean lifeguard wouldn't let his 2 great-grandchildren swim at his apartment complex pool. And at 88 years old, Gigi Dave wasn't going to let that fly. And after a few minutes, the law was after him. And my brother Scott and I had to drag him away before they drag him away for us. That was actually the second time that I saw the cops get called on him for sticking up for his family. But that's who it was. That's who he was. You know, when it came to his family, Gigi Dave would do anything, anywhere, anytime. He was always there for us, as you've already heard, and he was just our rock. He was the embodiment of love, compassion, logic and reasoning, and empathy. And man, was he funny. We have a lot of grandpa-isms that are classics within our family. So as I stand here now, speaking with all his other grandsons and Adam, who is also here with us, I just can't help but think of Grandpa's legacy, which has already been mentioned. These guys up here are awesome. All of them. These guys are amazing. They're all intelligent, strong, logical, filled with integrity, and most of all, they're all kind, good-hearted men. Our parents had something to do with that. I'll give them that credit. But Grandpa was our matriarch. I mean, patriarch. Patriarch. That's an inside joke as well. And he was our North Star, and will continue to be. He showed us that there is power in kindness and reason and empathy and justice in keeping your family as close as you can. And I think I speak for all of us up here when I say that we will continue to live by that code, as well as enjoy amazing corned beef. And we will continue to make him proud. And if that means getting the cops called on you every once in a while for sticking up for what's right, then so be it. This guy would love it. Thank you.
I'm Scott. I'm Lori's son, Lori and Steve's son, for those who don't know me. I just want to set the record straight on one thing that my mom said during her speech. Grandpa never learned not to give wet kisses at all. It's not something at all that he perfected. I think we kept it to ourselves, and after he gave us our kiss, I think we did a little wipe. My memories of Grandpa were always intertwined with adventure. For my brothers and I, a visit to Grandpa's house meant jumping in the minivan with the dog and making the journey through over the mountains and through the tunnels of Pennsylvania. And at the end of this journey, across the Ben Franklin Bridge was Grandma and Grandpa, waiting for us with outstretched arms and fresh corned beef and rye. I never lived in close proximity to my grandpa, but we made these visits frequently in my childhood, and he went out of his way to make every journey a special experience. During childhood, Grandpa was the first to spark my curiosity in science and the natural world. In adult life, our conversations went beyond normal life updates and often meandered through physics, politics, spirituality, and alien life. He tended to keep phone calls brief, but in person, I loved the way that he would not rush his sentences. Grandpa took his role as our grandfather to heart. I was in college when my grandma Julia passed, and I received a letter from Grandpa promising to do everything in his power to remain healthy as my sole surviving grandparent. And thanks to Norma, he was able to fulfill that promise. What I'll remember most about Grandpa is the look of joy in his eyes every time we met. It lit up the room, and I always felt that he was deeply proud to be our grandfather. Just a couple of weeks ago, during our last visit, he had this same look of joy, gratitude, and contentment as I sat on the patio with him and the cousins. Grandpa, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your love and building the foundation of our family. Just like your commitment to me, I will always be your grandson.
How does one encapsulate a man's journey through life in a few sentences? Maybe you begin with their upbringing, where they used to play with friends, what they dreamed about, their youth-filled aspirations. Maybe you start with academics, the type of student they were, what they enjoyed reading, what career they wanted to pursue, or possibly what they were like as a friend, a spouse, and a father. Inevitably, one realizes it is a foolish task. One man means many things to many people, and that was my Grandpa Dave. A brother, a loving husband, a dedicated father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, a prolific teacher, optometrist, and a dear friend to many. If all can agree on one thing, is that he was a compassionate, gentle man who kindled fires of kindness in the souls of those who needed it most. I often find myself reminiscing on silent, still frames in my mind of him grilling in the backyard of his Cherry Hill house, surrounded by family, and a big smile on his face to accompany a thick gray mane of chest hair. Or stories he had told me throughout the years of him as a young man, gallivanting the streets of North Philadelphia, more often than not with a hoagie in his hand. While he is gone, and there is no replacing his jovial and comforting presence, it warms my heart and brings me great solace to know that he will live on in the memories we will share with him. Thanks.
There was a time when I was younger when Grandpa would periodically fly back and forth from Cherry Hill to Delray in the winters. Sometimes, when he was home, he would take Ash and me to the movies. And one night, like we often did before the movie, we went to the country club diner for dinner. I got the burger, and as I tend to do, finished it off in moments' time. Grandpa looked at me, he looked down at my plate, back up at me, amazed, and simply asked, "You want another one?" Anyone else would have told me, as I heard constantly, to slow down, or that I shouldn't have eaten so fast because now I feel sick. But Grandpa saw how much I enjoyed that burger, and the first thing that came to his mind was to ask if I wanted another one because he thought it would make me happy, which was all that ever mattered to him. To me, this perfectly encapsulates the kind of guy Grandpa was. There was no judgment. He wasn't trying to teach me a lesson in that moment, just pure, unbridled love. Our joy was his joy, and we had lots of it. His grandkids were his prized possessions, and he always made us feel that way. I love you, Grandpa, and I'll always be your boy chick.
Although probably the tallest, I'm the youngest of Grandpa's 7 grandchildren, his boy chicks. Grandpa always used to joke that he was practically sniffing my armpits whenever we took a picture. Having lived close to Grandpa my whole life, I was fortunate to spend lots of time with him. Whether it be swimming in his pool, celebrating birthdays and milestones, spending time with him in Florida, going out to dinners and collectively devouring our chicken farms, or a simple trip to the movies, aka from his perspective, a quality afternoon nap. I'll always remember the big smile on his face every time we saw each other, and other small rituals, such as flexing our muscles together, and the inevitable, you keep getting taller and taller, even though I haven't grown in years. Grandpa taught me what it means to be a family man. to ensure the well-being of all of his loved ones and put those around him in front of himself. Grandpa, I know you're with us today, and I know you know what a beautiful family you've created, one so rich with the love that you gave to each and every one of us. I love you so much, Grandpa, and I hope to keep making you proud every day of my life.
Thank you, boy chicks, for those lovely tributes. And now Steve.
As the rabbi said, I'm Steve Rachelson. I'm Lori's husband, and I'm a son-in-law. But Dave didn't treat me as a son-in-law. I first met Dave in 1980. I was a very nervous guy, about to meet the parents of a wonderful girl I was newly hot and heavy with, and who I'm still hot and heavy with. With Lori holding my sweaty hand, I wasn't used to meeting my date's parents. I met Ann at the front door, and when our eyes and smiles met, we clicked immediately. It was literally love at first sight, Ann and I. But then there comes Dave, big cigar in hand. I'm not sure he smoked these cigars, but he liked to hold big cigars, very intimidating cigars. Walking towards me at 100 miles an hour. You could hear my knees clicking. That's how nervous I was. He then threw his hand out, but then shoved his hand away and gave me a big bear hug. And in 3 seconds I knew that he was special. And we developed a relationship, not like a father-in-law and son-in-law, but nothing like a father and son, for 41 years. He was super special to me. Because of my personal background, I was probably in need of a role model as a father. And I certainly found one in Dave, who influenced me as I raised my 3 sons. Like Dave, I had to work a lot. I was in a senior living field. I worked 24/7. But Dave always found times for vacations, dinner with the kids, being a bit lax in discipline, giving his kids a lot of freedom to develop on their own, being not critical of them, and being there for them at the drop of a hat whenever he was needed. And so was I, learning from him. He was a great father teacher. We heard about his teaching skills, but he was a great teacher as a dad. I also became involved with him at his skills as a family administrator. Now, you don't hear too many terms about family administrators. Dave was a family administrator. I should know because I'm a hospital administrator. He organized events for his extended family of brothers, sisters, brothers-in-laws, sister-in-laws, first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, and fourth cousins. We were used to 60 people Thanksgiving, large Jewish holiday dinners, pool parties galore at Gately, cousins newsletters, cousins clubs, cousins parties, on and on and on, all coordinated by Uncle Dave. And I never knew this type of extended family before, close as even existed before. Dave was the mayor. He made it all happen. He was the leader of a large tribe. Now, Dave had a flaw or two, like most of us. He was terrible at driving with directions. He always got lost. He took Lori and I to the airport on our honeymoon, and he got lost. Now, here's a guy who grew up in Philadelphia. How can you not find your way to Philadelphia Airport? Dave messed it up. And one time we were visiting from Ohio, and the front door opened, one of our kids lived, and our dog bolted out the front door. It was raining outside, and Dave and I had to get the dog. So we were running all through the neighborhoods, around Cherry Hill, backyards, strange streets and courts. After 15 minutes, Dave looks at me and says, "Where are we?" And I said, I live in Cleveland. You're asking me where we are? You live here. Thank God Ann was driving the big pink Cadillac down the street calling Snickers, Snickers, and everything ended very, very well. He also corrupted me a bit. I try to eat healthy. I've always been kind of a health nut with my own nutrition fads. But with Dave, 2 a.m. feast, we arrived from Cleveland with whitefish, corned beef, turkey, all from Famous Deli. And when he came to our house in Cleveland, coolers of Wawa subs. And once again, he was just a wonderful guy with some great diet habits. He corrupted us and our whole family. Dave's sadly gone now, but a piece of his strong spirit and kind personality is definitely in his 3 children, in his 7 grandsons, and I really see it in my 2 grandkids, Dave's great-grandkids. They love family. I mean, extended family. They felt comfortably with cousins, with aunts and uncles, and this age where kids probably could be shy, not these 2. I know where they get it from. So while Dave is gone, a little bit of Dave is in each of us and each of our kids and future generations. What a lucky bunch. Thank you.
So let me see if I can briefly bring some of what we've heard together. Today is the 10th day of the Hebrew month Av. On the Jewish calendar, Av is a month associated with loss because yesterday was Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which marks so many sad occasions in our history. Dave passed away on the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. But according to tradition, from today and onward, the month has a different name. It is called Menachem Av, the consolation of Av. The operative words are those of the Haftarah from the book of Isaiah, which will be chanted this coming Shabbat in the synagogue. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Comfort, comfort my people. After a loss, we seek comfort as a people, and when the loss is more personal, as a family. And clearly, there is much that is comforting in the memories that you've all recalled today. Family meant a lot to Davy, as he was called by those closest to him. You meant a lot to him. Family is where our conversation began when we met on Sunday, Tisha B'Av. Dave was born and raised in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. His parents, Isaac and Ruth, were immigrants from Russia, and they had a mom-and-pop grocery store. The family lived above the store. That's where Dave and his brothers, Irving and Sam, grew up. From that modest background, Dave went on to study education at Temple and then the Pennsylvania College of Optometry. This is not simply a story about personal achievement. It reflects what is a remarkable phenomenon in American Jewish history, from immigrants to professionals in one generation. And that became the basis for building a more secure and comfortable life for the generations to follow. Physical and fiscal comfort should never be taken for granted. We are all the beneficiaries of what the immigrant generation and first-generation Americans like Dave accomplished for family and in the history of our people. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. More. Having studied education at Temple, Dave worked as a substitute teacher in order to support himself through optometry school. He fell in love with teaching. It led to a career, as we've heard, at Heritage Middle School and later at Beck. He became the head of the science department. A whole generation of students benefited from Dave's love of teaching. Harry and Rena Platt were among his students. And after a full day of teaching, Dave would go on to his practice as an optometrist for years it was evenings and weekends. And then when he retired from teaching, he continued to work full-time as an optometrist until age 85. He had a very strong work ethic and commitment to both of his professions. But with all of that, what we've heard today is how much he made time for family. All of you, Lori, Ayn, Brenda, described him as supportive, encouraging, lenient, never saying no. Those are very meaningful attributes in a parent, for sure. But what is truly remarkable is that while he was working 2 full-time professions, you all spoke about how much time he gave to you. Driving you to school, Lori, and you too, Ayn, until you got your license. That was during high school. Making time for those family vacations, the trips to Florida and the station wagon, errands, rescue missions for you, Lori, when you injured your eye, 5:30 in the morning. You called your dad when you were stuck in the snowstorm. Brenda, you described him as a source of reason and comfort when you needed him. Nachamu, Nachamu, Amen. It is a comfort indeed to have that type of constant support and love from a father, to know that he will always be there whenever you need him, again and again. The prophet Isaiah understood that real comfort is knowing you can count on continuing presence. That's reflected in the repetition of that Hebrew word, Nachamu, Nachamu. Not one act of comfort, but many successive acts. It's also important to note that Nachamu is itself a plural form of the word. Dave was not just there for immediate family, he was there for the entire extended family as well. That's why you called him the administrator, or to me you described him as the organizer, the one who got everybody together for those barbecues and swim parties, and he did the grilling. Not just once in a while, almost every Sunday. And then you said that extended family, you explained that meant that your mom and who was one of 7 siblings, your dad had 2 brothers, so there were, I think, Lori, you said 24 first cousins, and then the second cousins on top of that. 40 people at a gathering was not unusual. And you found that out, Steve, when you came back after taking Lori out that night, when you came to meet the family and discovered 40 people in the house when you returned. It seems that Dave had a gift for making people comfortable and giving comfort to all of you. Ryan, you told a wonderful story about when Natalie became faint from fasting on Yom Kippur, and he stood behind her, gently stroking her hair as she recovered. Not a word said, nor necessary. A simple gesture of comfort. And you noted that though you and Natalie were not yet married, that was the first time she referred to him as Grandpa. Not your grandpa, just Grandpa. Through that act of comfort, he had become hers as well. That's the power of Nachamu, Nachamu. And certainly, your grandpa found comfort in all of you, his 7 grandsons, the boy chicks, 3 granddaughters by marriage, Natalie, Jacqueline, Alexa. He was proud of all of you, loved his conversations with you, which would range through subjects from science to politics, from climate change to alien life. They followed the news very well. He was well informed, not hesitant to share his opinion, though he was never dogmatic. And still, you all knew that he had very progressive views, concern for the underdog, compassion, felt that government should be there to help people. His personal ethic of making family and people in general comfortable extended to his political perspectives. Nachamu, Nachamu, Amen. And what a comfort that this man who loved family so much got to see great-grandchildren. And of course, you were all there for him, to comfort him. When Ann, his wife and partner of 41 years, passed away, Dave was devastated. He was depleted, physically and emotionally. So much so that you feared for his well-being. and you encouraged him and pushed him to go to that bereavement group. And that's where he met Norma. In you, Norma, he found comfort and a whole new life. Orchestra, ballet, theater, a social life that was filled not only with family, but with your many friends who became part of the life that you shared together. I had the pleasure of being the rabbi who married you. And I went back to my notes, looked at what I said at the time on that day. I said, what can a 56-year-old rabbi who has been married 31 years possibly say to two people who between them have almost 70 years of marriage experience? Remember that? So I refrained from giving advice. Instead, I noted how you had already been together for 7 years, and I asked, why now? Why get married now? To which you, Norma, replied with typical good humor that you were reluctant, but you figured the trial period was over. And Dave explained that when he asked you to marry him, you said, I want to think about it. To which he responded, take all the time you want. And then after a breath said, no. You know, when two people are married in Jewish tradition, we wish for them 7 marriage blessings. One we repeat twice. We pray that they become re'im ahuvim, beloved companions. The truth is you had already become that in the 7 years before you were married, and became even more so in the 24 years that you were together in all. You found comfort and healing in each other. Nachamu, nachamu. The doubling is a reminder that people find what is perhaps the greatest comfort in companionship, and especially the closest companionship, husband and wife, re'im ahuvim. In finding that in each other, you found comfort and love in one another's families as well. Nachamu, nachamu. You know, there's a set of commentaries that note that the book of Isaiah had something more than merely emphasis in mind with the doubling of that word for comfort, nachamu, nachamu. Yalkut Shimoni, a 13th century compilation of Midrashim, says, Nachmua Elyonim, Nachmua Tachtonim. We see comfort for those on high and for those below. Nachmua Balam Hazeh, Nachmua Balam Haba. We see comfort for this world and for the world to come. Nachmua Chaim, Nachmua Maitin. Comfort for the living and comfort for those who have passed from life. But a more modern commentary suggests another reason for the doubling. Nachamu, nachamu. When you give comfort, you find comfort. When I came to see Dave in the last days of his life, I found him surrounded by family. And you were there telling stories of his weightlifting with his brothers on the beach and how they could hold each other up in their hands. Stories about comparing biceps, which you demonstrated for me. Stories about how Norma tried to help him maintain a healthy diet, only to discover that he was substituting tasty cakes and potato chips. Stories, but even more than stories, your presence, stroking his hair, and you, Norma, holding his hand. Finding comfort and comforting him. That's the way Dave left this world, surrounded by family. Today is indeed a sad day, but whenever you're together, you will all find comfort in your memories of a husband, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, a cousin, a friend, a teacher, a scientist, an optometrist, who lived life fully and well. And those memories will be a comfort and a source of comfort and strength for all of you for all the days and the years to come. Nachamu, nachamu. We rise for a final prayer.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Maromim. Divrei Hashchina, Malot Kedoshim Otarim, Kezar Rakiha, Masirim, Et Nishmat, David ben Yitzchak Verezel, Shehalach Li'olamo, Began Eden, Minei, Tehei Menuchato, Hana Barachamim, Hasdirehu B'Seiter Knafecha Li'olamim, Uzrur B'Tzur HaChaim, Et Nishmato, Adonai, Unachalato, V'yanuach, B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar Amen.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of David who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you. Remember all the kind, caring, and loving deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of memory with all who are here today, as it is in God's presence. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Be seated for a moment, please. Just want to note that at the conclusion of services at the cemetery, the family will be returning here to Cherry Hill, to Ina Pam's home, and there will be services there this evening and tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. Shiva then will continue at Norma's on Wednesday and Thursday, and Norma will be attending services at Temple Beth Shalom at 8 o'clock on those evenings.
The other pallbearers, please. I'm going to ask you to rise once more, please.
For everything is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build up.
Eit livkot ve'eit lischot, eit zepor ve'eit rekod, eit lashlich avanim, ve'eit kenos avanim, eit lechavot, ve'eit lerchot mechavei.
A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather, a time to embrace and a time to refrain.
Eit levakish ve'eit lamed, eit lishmor ve'eit lashlich, eit likra ve'eit lipor, eit lachashot ve'eit ledaber.
Time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to let go, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak.